YouTube, thank you for watching my previous video regarding the login screen. So now we will connect it to a database and we will now store the settings that we will select on this portion. So right now it's not being selected, so we will just cover it up, and we will also cover the testing of the connection, something like this. On our previous project, our tutorial, so we already covered this portion, so we can already change the theme, but unfortunately it's not being saved. So whenever we restart the application, it is coming back to the default theme and style. So right now we will cover the to store it. So there are several ways to store settings using the registry and a custom XML, but for this one we will be using these settings. By default it is available in Visual Studio projects, so we'll just use this one. So but first we need to create first our text box for our login. Okay, so just copy and paste to make it much faster. So
we will just have the server name, the port number, and then the database name. So let's just change it to database name. And then this is the database user. And then this is the database password.
okay, so now we will create the variables for our settings. So first we will use server, okay, and then database. So by the way, you need to select scope so that you can actually change the value inside, because there are two types, the application and user. Okay, so then user name, just change it to port, username, password, and then we'll also save our theme. Okay, so you can drop this down, then browse, then expand the Metro framework, then select at the bottom part Metro theme style, so that will be the type of our variable setting variable, and then style. So drop it down again, browse, Metro framework, and then color style. Okay, so save. Okay, so let's put a default value for our server. So for this tutorial I will be using my server that I created on my virtual machine, which is the IP is 152, I think. So this one 152. So before I already created the database for this, so which is I called my app, and then I created already the table user. So basically it has three fields: the user ID, username, and password. Okay, so we'll just connect 192.168.1.2. So we'll just store it here, 192.168.1.2, so that we have a default value. Database is my app, port is 3306, and then username the Magnum, and then for the password is TD2050. Okay, let's store it. So right now we want to display this default value on our panel login, so let's do it here. So you can put it on the initialize, so txt server point text equals to settings point default. So again, need to right click, resolve properties, so that it will display the correct directives. Server txt db point text, so let's just copy this, paste, database, So change it to txt port, txt user, txt pass, and then change it to port now, then user, then password. So let's check if it will be displayed. Let's check. So it's showing. So now we will just load also the themes and style. So we will do it under main form. So here we will set the default theme and style. This my style manager. Settings. My default. Theme. Sorry, I forgot theme. Then let's just copy, then paste. Style. So let's just change manually the default style. Change it to dark. Then change this to teal. Save. Execute. Okay, so it works. So now we will just connect it to we will just store whatever changes that we made on the settings. Okay, so under panel login, so let's just create a function. Point save settings. Okay, so just copy this, then paste, and then interchange it. Should be the other way around, so that the value on the whenever we save it, it will store the value of the text block server to the settings variable. Same goes with the other. Pass. Of course, we need also to save the settings theme, which is gonna be this theme, and then the style, and then of course we need to call the save command to store it. Okay, so we just need to call it on our radio button for the dark and light, and also we need to call it under the test connection so that it will store once we click the test. So here, so we need to set also the default radio button, so based on the default selected theme. Okay, so let's check it out. Okay, so dark, then change it to pink, go back, close, run. Okay, so it's stored there. So now let's create the connection string. So for the connection string, so we will just use a static class. So let's create one. Let's name it functions. Then make it static. And then let's create a static property. Static string. And make it connection string. Okay, so let's change it to read only. So we will just need the connection string, for MySql, so which is this one. So let's just resolve properties, beautify it. Let's put it down so that you can see it clearly. Okay, so this is the connection string for MySql. So you need to pass a server, the port, the database, the user ID, and the password, which we already have under our settings. So now we will also create a function for test connection. So public bool test connection, so that we can test our connection if it's working. So we also, by the way, we need to add the MySql DLLs. So if you don't know how to install the MySql connector, so maybe check out my other videos. So just add reference, then assemblies, extension, so under M, just need to select MySql data and then entity. Just click OK. Okay. So let's bool return equals true, then return, and then using, of course we need to make it also static, using MySql connection con, right click again, resolve using MySql connect equals to MySql connection new, should be new connection string. Okay, so let's try con point open. So if there's an error, we will change this to false. So now we will call it under our test login. Okay, so under test login, button test. So we just need to add a message box to notify the user if the test connection is successful or not. Okay, so just need to add a message box. Let's copy. Okay, so let me explain this portion. So by default, I created the message, and then the icon, which is the default, is information, and then I will save the settings, then call the functions test connection. So if it failed, I will change the message to failed, and then the icon to error. So doing this this kind of code, we will just need to use one metro message box, this kind of line. So instead of doing it several times, and if, then we'll create an else, and then there's two message box. So doing this way, it's just much shorter code. Okay, so let's try it out. Test connection successful. Let's try to fail it. Let's by deleting this. So it failed. 5 test connection. So now we'll just create the login portion, the validation. So let's just create another function here that will public static, that will return a data table. Then we will pass a string, which is a SQL. Then let's just copy this static data table, then right click, resolve data, try. Curse data table, so new data table, then return need to create a MySql adapter. MySql data adapter, ADP, equals to MySql data adapter. Then we need to pass the SQL and then our connection. Okay, so ADP and then fill the table. So we can also use this using so that it will be disposed properly. Okay, then we'll just return it. So on our login screen again, on our login, let's double click login success. So that's the last code that we have. So from this portion we also need to test the connection, so we don't want to repeat ourselves. So let's create another function here, bool private bool testcon. Let's copy, then put this on top, delete, and then let's create another bool, turn as is equals to true, fill false, oops, is equals to false, then return this. Okay, so we just need to call it here and then call it again here. So if test connection, so we will continue with our login process, or we can just rather do this way, not return. Okay, then create our data table, or the or the screen first. String SQL is equals to, already prepared a SQL for this. Okay, name it 1. Oops, just use txt user. I think we didn't rename it, so we just need to rename it first. This is tx. Why tx? Let's change it to txt. Same goes with this. That's correct. tx, and then we just need to create a data table. Table is equals to functions. Why like that? Data table, then pass the SQL. So if table point rows point count is greater than 0, of course we will validate it, and else let's just return. Okay, so we will now validate the password here. If rows 0, which is the first row that will be returned by our SQL query, and then get the item or the field, then since it is string, the password, then just password is equals to txt password point text. So if it's correct, if it's not, then it will just return it. Then if it's true, then it will just log in success. So let me explain this portion, the login button click. So by the way, I created a optional parameter under test connection, which is a boolean, no message, because on our test connection, our login, we don't want to show a message box that it is successfully connected to our database, because we already perform it under test connection button. Okay, so let me explain this portion again. So under data table, we loaded the records under this query. So if there's a matching username on our table, it will return a value. So our rows will be greater than 0. So if that's the case, we need to check the validate the password. So this portion, it's just since we know the password is a string, so we just need to set a strong type of our field as a string, and then compare it on the password that we type. Okay, so if it's not equal, so we just need to clear the password and then return the fox to the password, and then show the message box invalid password. And then if there's no record found, we just need to clear the username and then the password, and then focus to the username. And then if all pass, so it will just notify the main form that the login is success, and it will hide the login panel. So let's try it out. Let's test connection first. Success. Then let's try a invalid username. Let's try a correct username, and then invalid password. So by the way, the record on our user is test, and then the password is test. So let's try the correct one. Test. It's successfully loaded. Thank you very much for watching. So on our next video, we will try to improve this main form. We will just add some tab controls, and we will also add the grid, and we'll teach you about the pagination and also the tile menu. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. Thank you very much again. Bye bye.